Abner was the commander of the army of Israel in the time of the reign of Saul. In fact, Abner belonged to the royal family, for he was the cousin of King Hel. Abner was the son of Ner, son of Abiel, the grandfather of Saul, and he was also the father of Jaziel, a servant of David. Abner's story in the Bible is recorded in Samuel's books in the Old Testament. And in this video, you will understand everything the Bible says about who Abner was. Abner became known in the Bible for having an important participation in both events related to the reign of the first king of Israel, Saul, as well as in the establishment of David's reign. During Saul's reign, Abner enjoyed great influence in Israel. He led the Israelite army in several successful military campaigns that enabled the expansion of the kingdom of Israel to the south and west. It was even in one of the military campaigns against the Philistines that Abner introduced young David to King Saul. But then when Saul's envious hatred was already inflamed against David, Abner led the troops that chased David. At this time, it seems that Abner served as a bodyguard from Saul. And in a well-known episode, David managed to get closer to Saul as the king slept, and took the spear and the jar of water that were foul from his head. And at that time, Abner and his soldiers were sleeping around Saul. And so, shortly thereafter, he was reprimanded by David, who charged him to fail the king's protection. About this, at some point, the biblical text records David's question against Abner and reporting that David shouted Abner and his army, saying, "Will you not answer me, Abner?" And Abner answered. And David said, "You're a man, aren't you? Who is like you in Israel? Why didn't you protect the king, your lord? Someone went there to kill him. Not good that you did. I swear to the Lord that you all deserve to die, for you have not protected the king, the anointed of the Lord. Now look, where are the king's spear and water of water, which were near his head?" Later, when Saul was finally killed after a defeat to the Philistines, Abner quickly tried to put Esed, son of Saul, under the throne of Israel in place of his father. With the exception of the tribe of Judah, all other Israel tribes initially recognized Sketch as king. But at that time, support for David's house was growing. In fact, David was already recognized as king in Hebron by the tribe of Judah, and there was a great conflict between the Sketch supporters and the supporters of David. And in this conflict, the army of Sketch led by Abner was defeated in Gibeon. But while fleeing the battle, Abner was persecuted by Joab's brother, who was the commander of David's troops. Abner even struggled a lot so as not to damage Zahel, but Zahel insisted on combat. Then, in self-defense, Abner killed Zahel with a spear. Although Abner was the army commander from Zahel during Saul's days, the truth is that he became even more powerful in Zahel after his king's death. He had a great influence between the Israeli tribes. Then at one point, Isboset even accused Abner of having related to Rizpah, who was a real concubine. At this accusation, Isboset implied that Abner was plotting to seize the throne of Israel when he related to Rizpah. But Abner did not accept to have his fidelity questioned and decided to really support David as king on a unified nation. Then Abner acted like a peacemaker and negotiator before the tribes of Israel and made them all recognize David as king. And in view of this, David praised Abner for his efforts and faithfulness. Thus, Abner had a decisive participation for the definitive withdrawal of the house of Saul from the throne of Israel. But life from Abner came to an end tragically. He was treacherously killed by Joab, the commander of David's troops. This happened when Joab returned from a raid. He learned that Abner had been well received by David in Hebron, and tried to make David be suspicious of his true intentions. He claimed that Abner was trying to fool David. Then Joab sent messengers behind Abner, causing him to return to Hebron without David to know. And upon returning to Hebron, Abner was taken by Joab for a private conversation. This, however, was a big trap. On this occasion, Joab killed him in a cowardly way to avenge the blood of his brother Azael. At this point, some scholars believe that, besides the feeling of revenge, it was possible that Joab was also taken with envy against Abner, considering that perhaps he could take his place as commander of the army of Israel. And when David learned of Abner's death, he lamented deeply. Even the biblical text records that David gave Abner a royal funeral in Israel. David also cursed Abner's killer, stating that the Lord would bring judgment to that crime. And the Israelites also accompanied David and mourned the loss of Abner, as he was very dear in the nation. So, in general, we can understand that Abner had a positive career in Israel. He contributed generously to the future temple in Jerusalem, and his good character was revealed in the way he was reluctant to harm Azael. Moreover, the most important in Abner's history is that he served as one of the instruments God used to establish the covenant blessings through the David dynasty in Israel. And this is all we can talk about who Abner was according to the Bible.
In a world full of cuts, short videos, and distractions, you chose to stay and listen until the end. That already says a lot about your willingness to look deeper. Drop your city in the comments, and if you'd like, subscribe and share this video with someone who's also not afraid to think. Thank you, a big hug to you, and see you in the next video.